Hey, welcome back to Ohrmundt Simmentals. This is Chris. If this is your first time here, hope you like the channel. Follow along, hit that subscribe button. And if you're returning, thanks for returning. But hey, the results are in. Let's talk some numbers. So if some of you know or remember, I'm doing my little hoof tape versus scale comparison. And if you don't know, go back and look at some of my previous videos. I'm kind of scattering them in and don't talk about it all the time, but you'll kind of get the idea. But basically, through most of calving season, this was an idea I got from EAB Farms. If you haven't checked out EAB Farms yet, go check them out, link in the description. He gave me a really good suggestion because I bought a new digital scale this year. Just, I mean, not super cheap, but, you know, pretty cheap one off of Amazon. It works fine. And for what I wanted to do with it, because we used to have a sling and it was kind of a two-man operation kind of thing. And it's like, it was so cumbersome. I wanted to get a scale. You just let them step on the scale, done deal. And it just actually made it a lot simpler. But then the thought was, okay, how does that digital scale compare to one of these hoof tapes? Okay. I mean, a lot of you who have dealt with cattle, whether dairy industry, beef industry, have seen one of those hoof tapes, but how accurate is it to an actual scale? Now, I did do some kind of like sanity checks on our scale, like how accurate is it? Because what we were using was just a plain old hanging scale, you know, nothing fancy. And we've used it for years, so kind of our baseline. So what I've also done is I've taken like buckets of water, weighed them with that scale, gone and put them on the new digital scale, and seen how accurate it was. So what I've been doing is I weigh every calf on the scale, and then I do the hoof tape, and then I compare them. I think I maybe skipped two just because we were really busy that day, and we just want to knock them out and get them done. And then what I've been doing is I've been writing them down. Most of you, if you've been following along, you've seen this. This is scale weight, okay? And then this is tape weight. And then I've just been jotting down notes, you know, whether it's a bull or a heifer. It's from Bruno, you know, Eagle. What I got a mic drop on here, a couple mic drops, things like that. But now we're done. Calving season is over. So what I've done is I've kind of done, you saw another column of numbers on the left side. And so what I did is I quickly went through and got what our deviation from scale weight is. So what this is, like this -3, so that is this weight, tape weight was 3 pounds less than scale weight, okay? This +3, so tape weight was 5 pounds more than scale weight. +4, tape weight was 4 pounds more than scale weight. So I've got a deviation off of scale weight. I consider the scale weight kind of my standard, and that's what we're basing everything off of, considering it to be more accurate. Because right on the package for the hoof tape, it does say that the weight is accurate plus or minus 7 pounds. So is that correct? Or is it better than that? Or is it worse than that? So when I look at all of how far off we are, now you see 2 stars here. So this is that one Eagle bull, the CM913. He was a big dude. So his actual scale weight was 15 pounds more than his hoof tape weight, which tells me he's a bigger body animal, finer bone, is essentially what that tells me. And then we have another one, Barb's heifer calf, her hoof tape number was 10 pounds more than her scale tape, or than her scale number. What that tells me is that she was a little bit smaller calf, but she just got a little bit bigger bone structure. Which, when you look at the way that you're supposed to do the hoof tape, you're supposed to put this, see see if I can demonstrate this. Okay, so if this is the hoof, my wrist is the hoof. Let's say this is the hair at the bottom where the hoof meets the hair on the leg. And then you basically just put this guy right at that level or right at that same point, give or take a little bit. Then you pull them tight and you've got this little arrow and that acts as your line. And then you pull it tight and then you just read the number here. And there is a side for bull weights and then a side for heifer weights. You know, pretty self-explanatory. So when I look at those two numbers, because you're basically dealing with, you know, essentially a bone, you know, you're dealing with the size of the hoof. That's why I say the 104 to 89, bigger calf, but finer bone structure, or smaller calf with a bigger bone structure. So I'm considering those two my outliers because they are double-digit deviations. Whether it's a plus or minus, I don't necessarily care right now looking at these numbers that it's a plus or minus. And the reason I say that is because when I look at like whether it was a heifer or bull or Bruno or whatever, there's no magical thing that stands out, and I could dive a heck of a lot deeper. They want ground feed. I could dive a heck of a lot deeper into heifer versus bull versus Bruno, purebred versus full blood, all that kind of stuff. And we could dissect a whole bunch of information. But when I look at this I looked at it last night, I don't see anything that stands out. So I'm not caring about this so much and whether or not this relates to this. You know, heifer, bull, or sire versus plus or minus. But what I am saying is that because these are double digit, these are potentially outliers and, you know, subject to, was it the weather over the winter? Was it feed? All that kind of stuff. So what does all of this tell me is that out of 21 calves, our average deviation was 4 pounds, whether that was plus or minus. On 19 calves, taking out these two, we got 3.32. Now, that's anywhere from 3.5 pounds better than what the actual instructions tell you, that they're plus or minus like 7 pounds, which they're probably just giving you. They have to take into account breed sizes, because they're also, I can't remember if it said in the instructions or not, but I'm guessing that hoof tape is also based on, when they set it up, they also did it based on the Angus breed, because I've also seen that in a few other things, is that the hoof tape weights, when they do hoof tapes, they're based on Angus. So, but if you're sticking in breed and not crossing over like, oh, I'm hoof taping 5 or 6 Angus today, or I'm hoof taping 5 or 6 Simmentals, and then, you know, a half a dozen Charolais, that kind of thing, then it's probably harder to cross over your numbers and see how they correlate. Now, if you're doing like a Sim Angus cross and that's kind of your base, then you're probably pretty decent. And honestly, black Simmentals to black Angus, they're probably fairly comparable. And the state of war won't shut up now. I'm trying to keep the door open because it's nice out. Well, actually, it's cool and rainy, but... So, at the end of the day, what does all this information tell us? That the hoof tape's not bad. I mean, my preference is the scale because it's easy. I mean, if you've seen the videos, you see me, we just walk the calves up, kind of just shove them up on the scale. They stand there for 2 seconds because they don't know what's going on. We get a weight, we pull them off, and we finish with tagging and navel spray and our Start Strong, all that stuff. And then we're done. But if you don't want to deal with a scale, or you're always moving around, like obviously a lot of guys are calving on pasture. They're not always calving in a barn like this. So there's, everybody has their own situation. So would if I was in somebody else's shoes and was calving out on pasture but wanted weights, I'd use a hoof tape. I mean, especially I'm actually surprised at how close it actually is. Now, granted, this is only 21 animals. Probably it'd be neat to see what this would do. Scale versus tape on, say, a couple hundred, and then to see where that correlation goes. Does it go up? Does it stay about the same? But on 21 animals, that's still a nice little sample size, and it's pretty decent. I mean, there were a couple of calves. I think, like I said, there was one calf. Yes, that one. I was trying to remember who it was. Helga's bull calf. He was very, very excitable when we were trying to work him, and he did not get scale weighed. He only got hoof taped because that was the only way I could keep him from moving around, is to pin him down. So he only got hoof taped. Now, if we keep him a bull and register him, I have no problems whatsoever using that weight with the confidence to say that it's accurate. And that's the biggest reason why I personally like the scale, the digital scale, only because it's a little bit more accurate. But looking at this was a neat little science experiment. And then to kind of figure out that average deviation, kind of geek out on the numbers a little bit. And I did stand here, and Bethany was staring at me, kind of laughing as I'm talking to myself, trying to figure out, is there any correlation with sires or heifer bull? And she's just like, you're such a nerd. But it was a cool little experiment. I definitely thank EAB Farms for giving me that suggestion, because it was neat. Dad didn't like it so much because he thought it was just a waste of time, but it was a fun little experiment. So if you guys have any questions about what I did, how I did it, just feel free to leave them in the comments. Again, I'd use a hoof tape if we were in a different scenario, doing it a different way. I'd use a hoof tape, use those weights for a registration. Especially if you can. There might be some associations that might not like it. I'm not sure, but I'd use it. Yeah, I'd use it. So I just want to throw a quick video together, kind of give you guys a wrap up on the numbers and the results of this test. So again, if you guys got any questions, please leave them in the comments. Hope you liked the video. Again, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and thanks for coming along.